Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. First, I want to say thank you to Laura and Fred for hosting this meeting. They did a fantastic job at putting materials together and giving you guys enough information. I think Fred gave half my presentation here up front for you guys, so we should be able to move through it pretty quickly. So first off, I just want to ask, how many of you guys have any experience with hemp as of right now? A few of you guys growing it, working with processors. You can't hear me? Just using it. Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, using CBD.
Okay.
We've both been in the cannabis industry in Colorado for the last 5 years.
Awesome. Well, if there's any questions in here that I can't answer, maybe you guys can. So with that, we'll move forward. Like Laura said, I'm with the Northwest New York Dairy, Livestock, and Field Crops team. My area of focus is in plant nutrition, soil health, forage management, and now industrial hemp. I started with the team in 2017, right as Cornell got going on the field research, and so we'll jump right into our results. Okay, so some of you guys, if you are not familiar with industrial hemp, this is what it looks like. Its Latin name is Cannabis sativa. Industrial hemp is less than 0.3% of the delta-9 THC. So it's a field crop for grain, fiber, and CBD, as you guys know. Marijuana is greater than 3% delta-9 THC. Female plants are grown for flower. So that's the difference. And as Fred hinted to, the estimated hemp market in the US is 688 million, and you can see here as far as industrial applications, consumer products, consumer textiles, personal care, supplements, hemp CBD, food. There are numerous products that can be made from hemp. So field crop or horticulture crop, you can actually, I'm sure you guys from Colorado have done or have seen greenhouse work. We've done field work and we've done greenhouse work, and there's been numerous of farms throughout Western New York and Eastern New York dabbling into this and getting more familiar with how to grow it and what works best. So it's dioecious, monoecious, or female. So with the different varieties that you have your grain, you have your fiber, you can have your dual purpose, which is your grain and fiber, and then you also have your CBD. And currently Cornell is working on a breeding program to help develop our own New York State cultivars, which is exciting. So establishing a hemp industry in New York, our main goal for our research and getting familiar with hemp is to evaluate hemp cultivars in New York. So the current access that we had to varieties, we wanted to see, well, how well did they grow in New York State with our weather conditions. We wanted to identify the interest among growers, if any growers are interested in trying this alternative crop, evaluate potential markets and identify processors, model cost of production, educate growers and processors about hemp, establish a local seed production, and establish a long-term hemp breeding program. So all of this is in the works and has started since 2016. And currently our hemp research and extension team consists of this list. We have 3 extension field crops teams, such as the team that I work on. So there's at least 1 specialist from each team that's focus is on helping with industrial hemp research, and then you've also got faculty and staff at Cornell. So there's a list right there. So evaluating hemp cultivars in New York, in our first year, we set up a 4 by 20 foot plot with 4 replication plots per site, planted with a small plot cone seeder, which was 15 to 30 foot, and it was harvested with an Almaco small plot combine. And so this is pretty much when I jumped into the industrial hemp research in 2017, and so we were measuring stand density, flowering date, flower sex, plant height, disease and insects, dry, clean grain yield, retted straw yield, and quality components of hemp. So we had several sites throughout New York State, and this was the McGowan grain trial at 7 weeks. And so we've had them set up next to each other, and this was, we had other replicated sites like this where you could see the difference among the different.
Is that 7 weeks after planting?
7 weeks.
Or after emergence?
So in 2017, you guys know we had a really wet year, and so planting dates were a little later than what ideally they would be. So a rough estimate, I would probably say close to 7 weeks.
Is that planting from seed or sets?
So this was planted with an Almaco planter.
Seeds.
Right, yeah, so we ran the
Direct
seeds.
seed.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Direct seed in the ground like you see on the
Yes,
ride.
yep, we used a planter.
Can you distinguish what the grain category is?
Yeah, so pretty much you're growing industrial hemp grain similar to how you grow wheat or like corn for grain, barley for grain, and then you can choose, you know, which avenue as far as processing of what you want to do for the grain. So with these plots, we used a combine harvester for the grain trials, and in 2017, like I said, it was a really crappy year, and majority of the fields that were planted with industrial hemp were the fields that were left open because growers couldn't get in there early enough to get them planted. So really in 2017, our observations were how well does industrial hemp do in your porous field conditions. And combine harvest, we're still figuring that out. There are harvesters out there, and I know there are some, Kloss and John Deere have made combine harvesters, and we're currently seeking, whether it is, you know, working with John Deere or Kloss or working with a custom person to actually get a harvester down here so we can continue to do trials with different combine harvesters just to see, you know, how well they do. Converting your farm harvester right now is essentially a pain in the butt, and a lot of growers didn't want to deal with that, and so we had this small plot harvester that we used.
Are you after leaf? Is that what you're after at this point?
This is grain.
Oh, that's grain?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Right now we're talking about grain.
Okay.
And so, excuse me, do you have, since other countries have been doing this, do you have research from those other countries on how they're harvesting and all this stuff that you're doing?
Yes, we're currently working with people, talking to different processors and growers that have had experience growing it to determine the best methods here for New York State.
You're not reinventing the wheel?
Right, correct, yeah. No, we are currently, you know, working with people who have already, other countries. We do have a strong connection and relationship with, you know, a whole group of people worldwide as far as getting information and learning what best suits New York.
Is that a modified combine, or is that one that Martin's from Lakeview Organic already had?
This is an Almaco small plot harvester that we used from our research farm that we had. And as far as the modifications, I'm not quite sure if they adjusted it at all to harvest the small grain. We just wanted to see what harvest would be like using a small plot grain harvester like that. Is it gonna get tangled up in the combine? How well does it harvest? Are we losing anything? Things like that. So essentially I would say you want to specifically have a grain harvester if you are harvesting.
So they use Martin's Lakeview Organic grains to harvest some of the plots in North.
Right.
That's not his unit though.
No.
That's a different unit. Is that one that Cornell bought or just borrowed?
So it's our small plot harvester that we have from our farm down in Ithaca, Aurora Farms. Right.
Okay.
And so 2017 grain trial yield results by cultivar. So below you'll see the cultivar and then pounds of clean grain per acre. And so your Felina 32 did essentially well. Upwards of, I would say, 1,300 pounds of clean grain, you know, all the way down to your, and I might not be saying these correctly, but I think it's Catini, where it was right around 800 pounds. So the yield was all right, depending on the variety and depending on the plot site. So if you guys have any questions about that, all of this information we have available, and I can get to Laura if you wanted a hard copy. So your grain trial quality results means by cultivar. And this is assessing the fatty acid analysis. So again, your quality, and you can see from the difference, you have the blue is your total oil, your red is your omega-6, and your green is your omega-3. So you can kind of get an idea of where your quality range falls there based on your grain cultivar type. Do you have any?
The grain after it's harvested, does it need to go through a dryer?
Yes. Yeah, and again, like I said, 2017 was a really wet year, so yeah, we had to put it through because you're essentially gonna potentially deal with issues of it rotting because it's too wet.
What are those units on the left?
That's a good question. Oh, that's your percentage, your total percentage of your oil, omega-6 and omega-3 is where it falls.
You mentioned that you have to dry the grain in a normal place that processes oats or wheat. Take these seeds in and do them, or is there a big change to line?
So from what I can gather, you're probably going to want a separate dryer just because the seed is so small that, you know, if you're throwing other grains in that dryer, there could be contamination issues there because it is so small. So the seed's really small, you're probably going to want a separate dryer or clean it separately and then try to clean your dryer out the best that you can. Any other questions?
Well, how small are the seed? Is it like an oat seed or
Smaller.
Clover seed or what?
Sounds like a wheat seed.
It's small.
Like a chia seed.
Yeah.
It's like the size of clover seed, it sounds like.
It's really small.
Clover.
Bigger than clover?
Not as big as an elephant, but bigger than clover.
Bigger than clover, okay. That's pretty fine though.
Yeah. So your grain trial quality results, this is your percent crude protein, and this is your varieties on the bottom. So you can see that based on your quality results, your different cultivars don't always line up. So you have to identify what quality aspect based on the process you're working with, what you want to focus on, because it's not like your Anka variety is the highest with your other quality percentages that you can see. So that's something to just keep in mind. So in 2018, our hemp field trials, we wanted to evaluate grain fiber trials north to south. And so we had 30 to 35 entries from Europe, Canada, the US, and China. We had 6 sites on 5 Cornell research farms. So that was Riverhead, Ithaca, Freeville, Geneva South, and Geneva North, and then Chazy. And then we had strip trials. It was 3 sites of 3 acres for combine demos. And so your 2018 cultivars, your grain trial yields here, down on the bottom you can see your grain yield pounds per acre. And then on your right are the locations. So your Pewter River grain yield was pretty high for that. So that, that seemed like a good grain variety. And then all the way down to your Catini and Swift, which was right around, I would say, 500 pounds per acre. Do any of you guys have any experience with any of these grain cultivars? No? Okay. So then this is your Dole trial grain yields. So this would be your grain and fiber. And you can see here, up against your sites, versus your cultivar varieties that you have. So Sterling Gold, Nebraska Feral, the Futura 75, your Helena. Again, yields varied based on your site and the weather pattern conditions that we had. So it is very sensitive to soil fertility and your photosynthetic capacity, so your sunlight and heat that you get throughout the season, so your growing degree days.
So when you're growing for the dual, so
Right.
both grain and fiber, are you harvesting at a different time than you would if it was just the grain?
So your grain and fiber, I want to say your grain, you're taking off for the grain, and then your fiber is found within the stalk.
Right.
And so then that's after. And
So it's two different harvests then?
there's a combine that takes off the grain, and then the rest of it gets pulled through and laid down.
Okay.
And then you can see here, I have a picture where we actually like picked it up and put it into like a, I want to say like bale stacks
Right.
kind of thing. Go ahead.
How long did you let the hemp straw lay in the field before you processed it? Was it laying there 2 or 3 weeks to wet, or did you pick it up and bale it like you would oat straw or wheat straw within a couple days?
That's a good question. I'd have to ask them how that went. Go.
Huh? 30 to 40, 38 to 41 days laying in the field ready. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so then here's your combine demo fields. And so that was a John Deere combine that we used, RSO59, which was 1.4 acres of the Tigra and Helena, and it was 675 pounds per acre, dry, dirty. This is pretty dirty. And then we had 2.6 acres of the Anka, and that yielded 1,315 pounds to the acre of a dry, dirty. And then we had 1.2 acres of the Felina 32, which was 1,127 pounds the acre, dry, dirty. So you can see here that with the combine demo, the yields were, for the Anka and Felina 32, I would say they were pretty good. So then your Ithaca fiber trials, 10 weeks. This was at 10 weeks, and so they get pretty tall. The industrial hemp grows about 2 inches a day, and like I said, it's, you know, sunlight sensitive, so, you know, if we had good sunny days, you're seeing that crop just grow right out of the ground. And the mean height was 8.4 foot tall. So this is pretty tall. And so how they harvested that was with a sickle bar harvester for the fiber trials, and you can see there that they just kind of went along the side with a sickle bar and dropped it, and then you can see here that that's how we collected it. And then below is the rutted straw. So the rutted straw yields for the different cultivars here, this was dry weight, tons per acre. So we had upwards of 3.5 tons per acre. And then you can see here which location yielded the best. And so then, you know, something to keep in mind again, you know, like I said about the locations, the Freeville location, the soil conditions could have varied from like the Chazzy location. And again, how much rain and sunlight did we get? Could have been different. You know, 2018 went from like sunny and nice to really difficult, wet, and a crappy harvest season. And then in 2018, we actually added cultivars in production for CBD. And so we actually did these transplants on plastic. And these were the cultivar lines for CBD. So we had the Ultra Rich 1 through 7, AC, DC, and you have the company source here, and then the breeder provider, Auto 2, Wild Horse, A2R4, RNF, Cherry, and Futura 75 were your CBD varieties. So your Geneva trial for the CBD cultivar, as I said, after a certain point in 2018, it just rained and it got wet and horrible for us. And so, like I said, and keep reiterating, it is sensitive to the weather conditions, your soil fertility and management practices. And here, you know, just from the weather conditions, it was very stressed and performed poorly.
What's your season from plant to harvest? Date-wise, you know, month-wise?
So I want to say you're getting it in right around the end of May, early June, and then harvest can start anywhere from August after that. So 90 days-ish, depending on what you're growing it for. So this just gives you an idea of harvesting and drying the CBDs. They went out and actually clipped the flowers and then brought them into greenhouses at Geneva to dry. And then to give you guys an idea, we also tested 1,200 samples for CBD. And this just kind of goes through the process of, you know, with sunlight and heat, the plant produces CBGA. An enzyme in the plant converts the CBGA into THCA, CBCA, and then CBDA. Heat is needed to make the delta 9 THC and the rest of the products from there. And so your CBD cultivar trial analysis, mean percent CBD by cultivar, the analysis of potential maximum THC levels. So there was 0.877 THCA, which the delta 9 THC, and New York State currently uses or follows that delta 9 THC level. So all cultivars in our trials were 0.3% max THC, and the CBD calculated was the same way. And so with your varieties on the bottom, anything that went above 0.3, you can see, like, for example, the cherry variety ran pretty hot. So that is a cultivar that I would not recommend using as far as growing CBD, just because it does exceed that THC level. I've gotten a lot of phone calls about this cherry cultivar. I just want to point out, and I've had phone calls where it's, you know, they're calling it cherry wine or cherry something, and they're obviously breeding that or crossbreeding it with a marijuana hybrid, I want to say, and so they're trying to breed the THC out of it, but still knowing that it has the cherry line in it. The cherry line ran hot, so I would caution you guys on using that. Go ahead.
So when you say you wouldn't recommend it, does that mean to say that that is illegal to produce?
Correct.
Well, thank you very much.
Right, so any,
Enjoy your crop.
yeah. So I'm cautioning you guys on, you know, what to choose, because if they come out and do a random sample and they find a hot spot in the field, then you have to terminate that crop, and so there goes your whole entire investment for that year out the door.
Will it be part of your presentation to discuss who comes and checks the qualities of this crop?
Right,
State legal markets.
correct. New York State Ag and Markets is in charge of that.
Do they have sufficient personnel to perform those activities?
No.
Okay, thank you.
At a previous event we're at, one guy said you're supposed to give them a 4-week notice, I think it is, for the harvest. So before the harvest, they come out and do the samples. And the guy said he was 3 weeks late. He gave a date, he didn't show up till 3 weeks after that. So it took him 6 weeks to get his stuff sampled.
By that time, it's all harvest.
We're not going to discuss that part.
Okay. So then here's your grain and fiber trial CBD analysis. So again, the CBD percentage is on top and your THC is on the bottom, and this is all of the cultivars that were in the trials. So you have the dual in gray, the blue is grain, and then the fiber is orange. And you can see of those varieties which ones potentially have a chance of running hot with your THC level. And so, again, you can see here, they did a heavier analysis with your THC. And so again, like for example, cherry is the fourth one in with the CBD variety. That ran hot. One of the URC BD 5s ran anything over that 0.3. You can see where that dotted line is essentially running hot with THC. So you got to be cautious about that. And then here, this is just showing you the CBD cultivars with the CBD percentage, the CBC percentage, and this is all dry weight, and then the CBG. So your CBD trial for flower biomass weights, Ithaca is your turquoise and Geneva is your gray color. Your cherry had the highest flower dry weight, going all the way down to your Futura 75, which was the lowest at 0.5. And then for your Geneva site, your Auto 2 was your highest dry weight, and then Wild Horse came in a little under your A2R4. So farm level economics, I want to see, here we go. Grain for fiber, your input cost, you're looking at right around, for grain, $485 per acre and $545 per acre of the fiber, with a crop value of $1,110 per acre and $800 per acre, with returns of $625 per acre with your grain and $255 per acre of your fiber. Our current farm business management specialist, John Hanshire, is constantly working on updating this stuff. And so his newest predictions are online that you can get through the Cornell SIPS, and that's School of Integrative Plant Sciences. You can get all that information right there on their hemp website at Cornell. So then your CBD dry flower, your input cost is $20,000 per acre. That's seed, clones, mulch, irrigation, plus labor. And then the crop value, $4 per percent CBD. So you're getting around $40 per pound. So ultimately your crop value could be around $56,000 per acre with a return of $36,000 per acre. That's questionable. Have we seen anybody get that yet? No. Go ahead.
Are there actually local markets right now for the grain, the fiber, and the CBD? I mean, where if you're growing 10 acres, that you can harvest it and it's somewhere within an hour or two drive to the processing plant?
So
do they exist?
We have a, so we have a list of any local processing place that would take the product that you can contact. As far as like local markets, other than like working with processing, it's hard to say. It's still ongoing with developing, you know, who do you want to work with and how that contract is played out. Do you have anything else to add?
I mean, I don't mean to keep butting in.
No, you're fine.
I mean, I'll go over a lot of stuff for my little session.
Right.
The whole Q&A, I'm sure you want to do.
Yeah.
So Ag and Markets, on their website, they have a spreadsheet of all licensed growers and processors, so you can find out who's growing in your area, who's processing in your area. But to the best of my knowledge, no, there's nobody local here that is doing that. With Steve being 3 hours away, I'm not considering him local. But
I have someone, that's fine, I'll come and get stuff.
Is there any other usage for the rest of the plant that might change the return, like turning the leaves of the CBD flower plant into bedding or?
Yeah, so there is ongoing research for using other parts of the plant for other product for example, bedding, sawdust, things like that they're looking into. But
Pellets.
yeah, pellet, yeah. So that's still ongoing research of diving into, well, what all can this crop be used for here in New York, even down to like nutrition for feed. Is there a value there? Do you
Are
have
you doing trials with feeding animals with,
So last I knew, Tom Overton at Cornell was looking at the nutritional value of hemp for dairy nutrition. And the only comment that I have there is that it just looks like it's a filler. But that is something that that's ongoing. So like a filler is just pretty much like feeding them to add something to the diet. But as far as nutritional, it's like fiber. It's just not really nutritionally valued.
I've heard that you get very happy cows.
It depends on what you're feeding them.
And whether you play music or not.
Yeah. So our future research direction here at Cornell and with the extension team, we want to continue to evaluate these cultivars in New York. We want to establish certified seed production in New York, initiate breeding programs for New York cultivars, which we've already started to do. Dr. Larry Smart has done a great job at heading up this initiative with industrial hemp and taking the lead on breeding research there in Geneva. So, you know, we want to build germplasm collection, and that's through collaboration, evaluate disease resistance, characterize the CBD and terpenes, improve crossing methods, develop molecular marker systems, refine high throughput phenotyping, release cultivars adapted to New York, and then develop transformation and CRISPR systems. So that has everything to do with like your breeding process, start to finish, crossing lines, growing it, how well is it adapted to specific soil types, and learning the yield potential based on that soil and your management practice. So that is ongoing, and we are continuing to put out trials here in 2019 to evaluate that kind of thing. You know, for example, like in a greenhouse, how many cycles can you grow in a greenhouse and what kind of output can you get from the crop? That's, you know, a question that needs answered. We get that question all the time with phone calls, but, you know, it's something that we need to actually do the research and answer ourselves. So again, a list of hemp resources for us. Cornell Hemp website, it's hemp.cals.cornell.edu. And then a list of other resources. Larry Smart is extremely busy, and now that we're getting into the spring season and he's trying to collaborate with the farm managers on where the plots are going. If you have any questions, I highly recommend reaching out to any extension specialist such as myself, and I'll give you my cell phone. It's 585-208-8209. Please call me with any questions that you have regarding industrial hemp, production, things like that. If I don't have an answer for you right away, I will definitely work with the team to get back to you with an answer.
Can I have that again?
Cell phone is 585-208-8209.
what is the vision for developing the seed stock at Cornell? Is it going to be a patented situation? Are you going to sell seed to local growers? Is Monsanto going to move in and take it over? What's the vision with that?
Cornell wants to have a locally adapted cultivar and plant breeding side.
Correct. So Cornell wants to currently be able to breed and develop our own New York State lines at this point. That's as much information that I have right now. We're currently working to develop a cultivar that'll work for New York State production.
But there's no talk about patenting it or...
Cornell doesn't do that from my experiences.
Thank you.
They actually are against patenting it. When I was dealing with them 15 years ago, I don't think they've changed.
So this is a list of upcoming events that we have ongoing throughout the season. Feel free to write those down. And I do want to bring your attention to the hemp workshop for Empire Farm Days. Myself and I saw Chris Becker is actually in the audience. We're working closely together with the hemp extension team to help put on the hemp workshop at Empire Farm Days, and it'll be a 3-day thing. So if you're out there, feel free to stop by. We're actually gonna be hosting a combine plot demo as well.
Can you share this presentation with us?
Yes, I'll get it to. She has it on her computer, and we can get it sent out.
If your email is with your registration, then I can send it to everybody that wants a copy.
And so funding sources, we have New York State Ag and Markets, Empire State Development Corporation, Cornell College of Agriculture and Life Science, Ag, and then a lot of our funding as far as like with the research projects too, some of them have gone through New York Farm Viability, so we thank them for their funding resources, and we want to thank you guys for your interest in allowing us to collaborate with growers here in each county to learn more about this crop. And I think just to bring your attention to some of the insects and diseases that we have found commonly throughout the growing season over the last 2 years, we've got white mold, so that is an issue. And so if you're thinking about throwing it in with a crop rotation, that is research that still needs to be done, and we're talking about it, but learning where it best fits within a cropping rotation. Obviously, you know, white mold isn't gonna do well if you're going into soybeans, right? So, you know, looking into those types of avenues on where it best fits into your practice. Hemp leaf spot. So this was found and it was unique, but we saw a lot of hemp leaf spot. Botrytis gray mold, and that can affect the quality in your production. And then we also did a 2018 pollination distance study. So it was with your high CBD lines. It was the A2R4, your wild horse, and Auto 2. And it was from Winter Fox Farms. It started on June 7th, 2018. All the males were removed, transplanted on July 7th. And so you can see here the radius of where you could see where the pollen was collected just with the movement of the wind. And so if you're thinking about growing a cultivar and you want to grow something else, you're going to have cross-pollination. And that just shows you the distance that it can go.
What are those distances? You can't think of that. You're talking 1,000 feet? 10 miles?
Chris, do you remember what Larry said about that?
When Larry presented this earlier, some of the distances were over a mile.
Yeah.
About a mile?
Look, yeah, over a mile, I want to say. And it depends on where the field's at, too. If there was, you know, woods, a wood line or something like that, or if it was in an open.
I think his takeaway was that you're going to have cross-pollination.
Yeah.
Plan on it.
Yes.
Yep.